Hello, everybody. It's Ed Rosenberg again, and this afternoon I have the pleasure of speaking to Abdullah Haydar. Abdullah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks, Ed. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to your presentation at the show and to meeting to you. And our whole group is really looking forward to just discuss a little bit about what you experienced the last few years. Now, for those of you who don't know, I probably have the world record of speaking to the most former Amazonians ever, but I have never spoken to somebody at anything close to as senior as Abdullah was. Abdullah was a senior Amazon executive working in the Amazon marketplace space. So Abdullah, you want to tell me a little bit how you got to that position, please?
Sure. So after a long career at Intel in the consulting world during the dot-com days at companies like Razorfish, I had started up a small company and done very well, and Amazon recruited me just to help start up the Amazon Development Center in the Detroit, which is my hometown. We opened the Detroit office in 2012. I led up a couple different areas. One area was the listings platform that processes all of the listings that Amazon sellers create, but also all the listings that internal Amazon groups, subsidiaries, pretty much anyone who creates a listing anywhere on Amazon, whether it's the Kindle, listings, the instant video, MP3, etc., that all processed through my system. From a seller perspective, that also meant I owned the manage your inventory page, which all of you are so familiar with, as well as the reports that download from there and all the different things there, such as FBA integration and whatnot. And then later on, I took on a different role where I was leading up with the infamous Selling Coach. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Selling Coach. So all the different reports there, all the different recommendations, categories. So I had teams that were reporting to me, working out of multiple locations, including some people in Romania, Seattle, Phoenix, Detroit, etc. And so I led up in a bunch of different areas. And since leaving Amazon, many sellers have, even when I was with Amazon, but even since leaving, a lot of sellers have sought my expertise, and I'm happy to share what I know, even though I'm not actually working in this field at the moment.
Okay, that's pretty incredible. How recent, may I know, did you leave Amazon?
So I left Amazon just under a year ago.
Oh, you left under just that. Okay, now how familiar are you with seller performance?
I'm very familiar with them. So I worked very closely with them on certain projects. Some of the information I can't share, but a lot of information I can. That group is just like the rest of Amazon. That group works very autonomously. They have a lot of different groups, each working on their own projects, etc. So they would reach out to me to get certain listing data or to work on certain recommendations. We also at one point talked about using my Selling Coach systems in order to deliver all of the seller performance notifications and whatnot when someone was having issues where they had too many returns or too many cancellations or all those different things. And so at one point they actually were recruiting me to join them, but I ended up not joining them. But I did learn a lot about them in that process as well.
Wow. In your opinion, does it make a difference when you respond to seller performance, like to try to aim for Seattle or aim for India?
I don't think it matters in terms of speaking to specific groups and whatnot. I mean, it does. Well, I should say it does matter, but the most important thing is that you respond to whoever started off the conversation with you. But then, if you're not getting, like, if you're talking to the first level of people and you're not getting the answer you want, it's okay to escalate. It's okay to deal with different things. And that's some of the stuff that sellers often ask me is, hey, I'm talking to these guys. They may not be able to solve my problem, and how do I get to the right person? How do I get the information I need, et cetera? Those are some of the tips and tricks I've been sharing with different sellers as they ask. And so, being from India or in North America is not as important as finding the right person. But one of the things is Amazon does recognize that sellers get frustrated sometimes dealing with people who may have a thicker accent and whatnot, and it's absolutely okay to ask for someone in the North American office if you're having trouble understanding the person you're speaking to.
Right, well, that's with seller support, but seller performance, you can never get it. You can never get anybody over on the phone.
I apologize. I'm mixing up the two. You're absolutely right. On seller performance, in that case, since it's all written, it doesn't really matter who you're getting to. By the way, there is actually a way to. It's very rare, but there is a way to get to speak to someone in seller performance if your issue is complicated enough. But in general, I mean, I wouldn't advise it because that makes you more of a high-cost seller to deal with from Amazon's perspective. If you're high maintenance, Amazon doesn't want you.
Well, I read on the forum somewhere
Hmm.
that there was this guy, he was getting a lot of patent violations, and he was winning each one.
Hmm.
And eventually Amazon said just goodbye.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the things sellers really got to be careful of. Is Amazon will go to many lengths to keep a buying customer. Like if you're a customer, and even if you're a hassle to deal with, you got a lot of returns, a lot of exchanges, a lot of problems and complaints, whatever. Amazon will still keep you around with very, very few exceptions. But if you're a seller, there's a very low threshold. You start being a hassle to deal with. Even if you're right every single time, the fact that you're a hassle to deal with, Amazon may say goodbye quicker than you think. And if you've got your inventory locked up in FBA or whatnot, that may cost you to remove it.
Right. I always tell people exactly what you just said, that they're not interested right, wrong, he said, she said. The fact that somebody is out to get you, that makes you a target for Amazon.
Yeah, yeah, that's very, very true.
Okay, so now I've been told to ask the following question. Why does Amazon seem obsessed with protecting Chinese sellers? In other words, I could sell 10,000 items a month. One customer will say perhaps it was fake and they'll suspend me.
Hmm.
And Chinese sellers, it seems like they could do no wrong. Counterfeit, we wouldn't have proof, do a test buy. Why is it? Is it a perception problem what we have?
No, you're actually right on there. You're actually what you're saying is true. Now, I can't go into a lot of details at the moment just because of time. So I'll just give you the very quick answer, which is Amazon has struggled in the Chinese market. They invested a lot of money to try to sell in China, Chinese sellers in China, international sellers in China, and that actually has not been a very successful business, and they've scaled that back. And so the other aspect that they're focusing on now is getting Chinese sellers to sell in America, in Europe, et cetera. And so you're right that there's a lot more leeway there, and it's not just a perception thing. And many American sellers, like especially arbitrage sellers, they've been hurt by some of the new rules where the Chinese seller who's actually guilty of what's causing the arbitrage sellers to get in trouble is not being hurt as much. So it is a huge point of frustration, and there are ways to navigate around it. And I'll be happy to talk about those during the event. But I definitely feel the pain that the seller community is having, and I advise you to be very, very careful in navigating these waters.
Yeah, and I'm gonna one final question. I don't want to spill too much of this great content for the event, but one final question: how closely related are seller performance actions to the business model of Amazon?
So, Amazon, thinking of Amazon as one big company with one big business model is the wrong way to think of Amazon. Amazon is like a bunch of cats. They each have their own strategy. They have an overarching kind of, here's the way to go, but they each kind of operate within their own rules, and they each have their own metrics, etc. So seller performance's job is to keep buyers happy and sellers from violating too many rules or definitely from breaking any laws. And so I wouldn't say that seller performance is like somehow aligned or not aligned with business strategy. I would say that they have a bunch of core tenets of what they want to do, a bunch of core principles, and they march to those principles, and they try to automate as much as possible. They try to watch the laws as much as possible and make sure that people are following the law, etc. But they really do operate autonomously, just like every other Amazon group, and that means that when you're dealing with one particular rule that may be dealt with one group in seller performance, there may be a completely different group dealing with a different rule, and there may not be any overlap. And again, this is where you as a seller have to be really careful, thinking, hey, I resolved one issue, and I was able to work that out with seller performance, and then another issue comes up, they do it the same way. Not necessarily, right? There may be a completely different group responsible for that, and they may not go for the same method of resolution that the first group did. So you got to really be careful dealing with this stuff.
It's fascinating stuff, and I so appreciate you coming up, and I really appreciate that you're going to come to the event, and we're really all looking forward to meeting you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I'm also looking forward to it, and I'll see you there in less than 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.